In this video, we'll show you two basic jumps off the wheel, the straight jump forwards and the straight jump backwards. We'll always start on the wheel. The mounts are covered in other videos. Also, if your gymnast can't do a straddle sitting yet, we recommend learning that before the straight jump from the wheel. But you can already start with the preliminary exercises from this video, that is chapter 1, 2 and 5. You can skip to each chapter by clicking on the time marks in the video description. First, let's have a look at the correct landing position. This is very important because the landing is the most dangerous part of any jump. In theory, or when landing on the floor, the feet should only be hip width apart. This is hip width apart. There's only space for another foot in between the feet. On a soft mat, it's impossible to land like this, but let's stick with it for a moment. The feet are pointing to the front, or maybe a tiny little bit outwards. The knees are bent almost 90 degrees, and they are above the feet. This is perhaps the most difficult part. During landing, the knees often go off to the middle or to the side. The upper body is upright, the arms are straight and parallel to the floor. An angle of 90 degrees between the arms is a good option. You should practice the landing position in many different ways. We suggest you integrate it in the warming up of every class. Depending on the age of the gymnast, you can even create little games. As mentioned earlier, landing on a soft mat is a bit different. It's more difficult and it's okay for the feet to be a little further apart. However, the knees should still be above the feet. The body position during the straight jump is, of course, completely straight. The gymnast should make sure that the arms are lifted right next to the ears, the abs are tight, the bottom is squeezed, the legs are straight and the feet pointed. It's best to first practice it by simply jumping off the floor. You can also practice it on the trampoline. There the gymnast has more time to figure out the correct body position. There are many different ways to practice the straight jump forwards and backwards. It's a good idea to integrate it in every warm-up. Don't forget the correct landing. Also note that there are two options for the arms. You can start with arms down or arms up. We suggest practicing both. Starting with arms down, you can achieve more height. Starting with hands up is a good preliminary exercise for the somersault forwards. Before we show you how to spot the gymnast on the wheel and everything, let's just briefly discuss two important things that you should be aware of and that basically apply to most vaults. At the beginning, you should always use a high plane for landing. This is important because firstly, jumping all the way down is dangerous for a beginner. Secondly, if a beginner has to jump all the way down, they won't actively jump up. But jumping high into the air is part of the correct execution and moreover is crucial for other jumps. There are many different ways to build a high plane. Also, you can vary the size of the wheel. In the video you see right now, the gymnast is actually already very advanced and we have picked a pretty big wheel. The advantage of the big wheel is that it's steadier, so it's more comfortable to stand on, and it has a better bouncing effect. However, with beginners, you would definitely use a much smaller wheel here. Firstly, a small wheel just encourages the gymnast to jump higher, and secondly, the distance to the mat is much smaller with a small wheel, and therefore it's less scary and safer. In particular, if you're teaching little kids, you can use a very small wheel because for them, even a small wheel is quite steady and it'll work very well with the high plane. Now let's talk about the takeoff. What we want is that the gymnast jumps as high as possible and of course lands on the mat. Now the angle of the takeoff and the moment relate to each other, and here is how. So the force of the thrust should roughly go through the center of the wheel. So if the gymnast here jumped sooner, she would have to jump almost vertically. If she jumped later, she would have to jump more to the front. A common mistake is that a gymnast jumps at this point here, which means that they will jump quite far to the front and not very high. In that case, they have to change two things. They have to jump sooner and more vertically. Another common thing you might see is that the wheel rolls away from the mat after takeoff. This means that the gymnast jumped too far to the front compared to where they were at the moment, and usually you just have to tell them jump more vertically, but sometimes they'll have to do both, jump later and more vertically. If the takeoff is done perfectly, you will actually see the wheel bounce a little bit and it'll just stand still afterwards.
A good preliminary exercise is jumping from parallel bars. This is a way the gymnast can get used to the height and to standing on and jumping off the rims. You can also simulate the last part of the mount.
If your gymnast is not yet used to standing on a wheel, you can start with a completely fixed wheel. You can fix it similar to how we've done it here, or you can ask another coach or reliable gymnast to hold the wheel. You as a coach should spot the gymnast. You can hold them by their hips. Make sure that neither the gymnast nor you are at any risk of falling. The next step is to do the straight jump from a moving wheel. If your wheel is fixed like here, you can just move the box a little further away. You can see this in our video on the pike mount. Alternatively, you can have a second person control the wheel. The gymnast should push the wheel forwards with their hands, get up roughly at the highest point, and then jump. It is really very important that you spot the gymnast properly, as it's very hard to keep the balance on the wheel when another person is controlling it. Even advanced gymnasts can fall off if someone suddenly holds the wheel while they're standing on top of it. Once the gymnast gets a feeling for the wheel and learns to control it, all of this will become much easier. The straight jump backwards is similar to the straight jump forwards. For the gymnast, it's a little more scary because they don't see where they are jumping. When jumping from a moving wheel, the gymnast will have to learn to control the wheel in the piked position pretty well.
You shouldn't let a gymnast jump from the full height of the wheel unless they are in very good physical shape. In order to protect their ankles, knees and also their back, the gymnast should have very good strength and stability. Here we're showing you just a few examples for exercises. We recommend that you include some exercises for strength and stability in the warming up of each class. Also include exercises on unstable underground. The most important thing in all the exercises is that the knees are exactly above the feet and not wobbling around. As the gymnast gets stronger, you can increase the height from which they are jumping, so eventually they can jump from their correctly sized wheel. Keep in mind the important points: the correct moment of the thrust, a good height, correct body position in the air, and perfect landing. Also, according to the competition rules, the gymnast must land at least 90 centimeters away from the edge of the mat. So have fun with the straight jump and train safely.